How are you guys doing? Today is Saturday, March 20th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an individual profile on Brad Hand, who is the replacement pitcher who most recently got signed by the Washington Nationals. And just with this profile, I hope that his numbers and his accolades and his achievements can speak for themselves and can say more than I can as to why he's one of the best pitchers in the MLB. And whenever he's on the mound, I think that out of a lot of relief pitchers, he's going to be one of the few relief pitchers that I pay attention to this upcoming season. So just to give a little bit of background, he turns 31 today, which is why I'm doing it today. And if you ever seen him play, he's a very selective pitcher. He's very decisive, and I like that. He has a lot of swagger, and when you actually can call on him, you can actually, like, this dude will win you games. And he went on to lead the American League in saves last year, just for a little bit of context. So just to jump back in it, he's originally from Minnesota. He would commit to Arizona State after being, of course, one of the best baseball players in Minnesota because, of course, Arizona State doesn't offer their scholarships to scrubs. But after playing with Arizona, he would get selected in the second round with the 52nd overall pick by the then Florida Marlins in the 2008 draft. He had decided to jump to the MLB rather than go to Arizona State, actually. And then after a wild up and down trip, he would finally make it to the MLB in 2011 for his age 21 season. And it would take a second for Brad Hand to kind of get to where he was going. In his first season in the MLB in 2011, in his age 21 season, he would end up starting 12 games for a Florida Marlins team that would end up going 72-90. They had the worst record in the NL East, did not make the playoffs. In those games, he finished with a 1-8 record and a 4.20 ERA. He would pitch 60 innings, allowing 53 hits, striking out 38 batters, of course, not getting much done. Second year wouldn't be a lot better. In his age 22 season, he would start one game. He pitched only 3 innings. He had 1 loss. He had a 17.18 ERA because he allowed 7 runs in those 3.2 innings, struck out 3 batters. Not the best start to the season. Going into his age 23 season, and this was in the first couple seasons with Miami. His year 2 season was year 1 of the Miami Marlins. In year 3, which was the same season that Jose Fernandez won Rookie of the Year, Brad Hand would start 2 games and he would play 7 in a season where the Marlins would end up going 77-80, they went 62-100. They had 7 less wins than the year before, and that would be the first time since 1998 that the team had lost 100 wins in a season. They had lost 100 games in a season. But in this season, Brad Hand would, in those 20 innings he pitched, he finished with a 3.05 ERA. He allowed 13 hits in those 20 innings and struck out 15 batters. Nothing too crazy, but it would transition him into his next season where he would start to get a lot more innings, and he would see himself get the most innings he'd ever get in his career. In 2014, he would start 16 games and play 32. In a season where the Miami Marlins would finish with a 77-85 record, which of course is a 15 game increase from the previous season, and I would say it's one of the most games they've had, the second most amount of wins that they've won in a long time. And then, of course, in that season, Brad Hand would finish with 3 wins and 8 losses. A 4.38 ERA, which is about what he was throwing his first season. But this season he threw for 111 innings pitched. He also tossed his first save that year, too. He allowed 112 hits in those 111 innings and only struck out 67 batters. So, of course, he was just a middle-of-the-line starting pitcher who really couldn't get it done. And then in his last year in Miami, which was 2015, he would start 12 games but play in 38 as he started to kind of make the transition into a relief pitcher. in 2015. This is a season where the Miami Marlins would finish with a 71-91 record. But of course, in his last season there, Brad Hand would finish with a 4-7 record and a 5.30 ERA, which would be the highest ERA he's ever put up in a season where he's played more than 3 innings. So this would go down probably as his worst season. But continuing on, in the 93 innings that he pitched, he allowed 107 hits and struck out only 67 batters. So, I mean, he started to get his strikeout numbers up a little bit, like the average is up, but he decided that, I don't know, I think he finally decided for him that he was going to switch his game up, and from then on, he had never started a game. After Miami, once he joined San Diego, he never started another game as a pitcher. So in 2016 for San Diego, he would end up playing 82 games, which led all pitchers in the National League. And this is in a season where the San Diego Padres would end up going 68-94. They had the worst record in the National League West. But of course, in this season, Brad Hand would finish with a 4-4 record as a relief pitcher. He had a 2.92 ERA, the first time he'd ever put up a season where like he actually, the first time he put up a season with at least 25 innings pitched, and he had a sub-3 ERA, and this was his first season as a reliever. In the 89 innings that he pitched, he would allow 63 hits and strike out 111 batters. I like to bring up that stat because I think it's very impressive. One, when someone allows less hits than they have innings pitched, that shows consistency, and the fact that someone can strike out more batters than they have innings pitched, that shows that shows a level of dominance. And even though he didn't make an All-Star game, the league was starting to feel Brad Hand's impact at San Diego, and ever since then, ever since he has not missed the All-Star game to date. This would transition into his 2017 season, his age 27 year, where he would start 72 games in a season where the Padres would finish with a 71-91 record. They had 3 more wins than the season prior, but Brad Hand would make it to his very first All-Star game in his career. In those 72 games, he would finish with a 2.16 ERA over 79 innings, as he had set 21 saves for the very first time in his career. Because the previous year he was just a relief pitcher. They never really put him in at the end of the game. This season they finally did, and the Padres were able to win games because of him. And then in those 79 innings, he would allow only 54 hits, the least amount of hits he'd allow in that many innings, of course. And of course, he'd strike out 104 batters, which is 7 less strikeouts than the year before and 10 less innings. So just showing that his strikeout averages were going up just a little bit more. His strikeout per 9 numbers went up from 11.2 to 11.8. And like I just said, even though the Padres did not make the All-Star game, even though the Padres did not make the playoffs, Brad Hand would make the All-Star game. And this would transition into his 3rd season in San Diego, which would turn into his 1st season in Cleveland in 2018. For the entirety of the season, he would play 69 games, start off for San Diego, and end up in Cleveland in a season where Cleveland would finish with a 91-71 record, with the best record in the AL Central, and they immediately made the playoffs. For the entirety of that season, Brad Hand would, in those 69 games, he put up a 2-5 record, but he put up a 2.75 ERA. His 3rd straight season of being a relief pitcher, he threw sub-3. He finished with 32 saves, the second most amount of saves he's ever put up in his, the second most amount of saves he's ever put up in his entire MLB career. And in 72 innings, he would allow 52 hits and strike out 106 batters. So he had less innings pitched than the year before. He had only 2 less hits on 7 less innings pitched, but he struck out 2 more batters on 7 less innings pitched. So he was showing that he was getting a lot better, as his strikeouts per 9 innings went up from 11.8 to 13.3. And I think for San Diego, he was named an all-star for his second straight year in a row as a relief pitcher, which is incredibly hard to do considering how many people are like professional pitchers in baseball. He was able to repeat and continue to hold his own as one of the best in all of baseball. And this would transition into his first playoff appearance where the Cleveland Indians would lose to the Astros in the ALDS. They eventually got swept. And this would end up being the season where the Red Sox beat the Dodgers. So, I mean, it's not like... But the Astros were a pretty good team that year. This would transition into Brad Hand's first full season with Cleveland, and so far the only full season that he's put up as a member of the team, of course, with COVID in mind. But in 2019, he would play 60 games for a Cleveland Indians squad that would finish with 93 wins and 69 losses. And because they finished with the second best record in the AL Central, they did not qualify for a playoff spot, even with 93 wins, so they missed it. And then transitioning into 2019, his age 29 season, Brad Hand, for the very first time in his career as a replacement pitcher, would post an ERA above 3, as he posted a 3.30 ERA over 60 games in a season where... Just for this season, he would finish with a 6-4 record, and of course, he would be named an All-Star for the third year in a row. He would pitch 57 innings, which is the least amount of innings he's pitched ever in his career, except for this most recent season and the seasons that he was hurt, or and when he was trying to get his first start in Miami. But in San Diego, well, ever since he'd been a relief pitcher, the least amount of innings he'd ever pitched. He had 34 saves, which is the most amount of saves he's ever put up in his career. And in the 57 innings he would pitch, he would only allow 53 hits, and he would strike out 84 batters in those 57 innings pitched, which is the second highest strikeouts per 9 ratio that he's ever put up in his career, second to the year he put up prior. And even though the Cleveland Indians would not make the playoffs, they will be back the next year with Brad Hand still in the lineup, continuing to dominate the way that he does. And he would actually get better in 2020. And I think 2020 would go down as his best year and would go down as definitely his fourth All-Star game in a row. So in 2020, of course, we all know the background with quarantine. They had to shorten a 162-game season to 60 games in order to at least get a season accommodated and at least make it as safe as possible for all the players. And in this shortened season, in the 60 games, Brad Hand would end up playing 23 of them. He led the American League in games finished, as he finished 21 of them in a season where the Cleveland Indians finished with a 35-25 record, the second best record in the AL Central. This is also the season where Shane Bieber won the Cy Young after winning the Triple Crown. Carlos Carrasco won Player of the Year. So, of course, the Indians, their entire pitching staff was dealing that season. In the 21 games he played, he finished with a 2.05 ERA in the 22 innings that he pitched. He led the American League in saves for the first and so far only time in his career. He went in those 22 games that he played, he only allowed 13 hits, and he still found a way to strike out 29 batters. And even though he didn't make the All-Star team, he very well would have this season. And once they made the playoffs, the Indians would lose in the first round of the AL wild card to the Yankees. So with that said, going into this next season, going into today, on Brad Hand's 31st birthday, I think his numbers speak for themselves, as he is a player that is continually getting better and better. And not to mention, in January, he signed a 1-year deal with the Washington Nationals. So, of course, the Washington Nationals are very aware of the gem that they are about to take full advantage of, and you can see it's very possible that the Nationals bullpen will get infinitely better just overnight with this dude signing. That's how good he is. But with that said, I think that his numbers and his accolades and his accomplishments should speak more for anything that I can say. And with that said, I want to thank everyone once again for listening to all 14, 15 minutes of this piece. I want to wish Brad Hand a happy 31st birthday. And once again, I'm James Sims. This is The Elite. Today is Saturday, March 20th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. Peace out.